Hi, my name is Mandolin Royal, and today I'm going to be going over some of the indicators of gender as the American breasts mature. As you can see, this pile of 1-week-old chicks, they all look pretty similar to each other. You might see some references on wing sexing. This breed is not one of the breeds that's been bred to do that reliably. Sometimes you can do some guesswork on it, but it really boils down to the breeding selection and if that was something that was incorporated into the line. So another method with birds that are all the same color, since they don't have an auto-sexing feature, is to go ahead and do vent sexing. But that's not a skill that I have learned. And I'm also not in a giant hurry to know what gender is. I want to know well before 10 weeks, just for the sake of pen space planning. But really, these birds will tell you by the time they're 4 to 5 weeks old. So we're going to go through a couple of different age groups, and I'm going to show you when they start showing who they are. And the reason you do want to go ahead and separate by gender before maturity is to reduce competition, because if the boys don't have anything to bicker about, they're going to get along much better, which means they're going to be able to grow to more of their potential, and keeping your flock is going to be a lot less dramatic. You do want to keep them in a pretty low competition thing with multiple feeders, multiple drinkers based on your quantity, making sure your space is good. Getting them out on forage before they're 10 weeks also helps a lot. This is not a variety you want to crowd together, and you definitely don't want to do anything that's going to increase competition. These birds were built to range. They can get frustrated if they don't have that luxury. But these guys, they really look pretty similar. I've heard the noise of boys. I haven't been able to isolate that noise on the video, but it's sort of like a little baby version of an alert. But let's go ahead and get over to a brooder with some older babies who are starting to show us a little more about themselves. So these babies came out of the brooder that has the coming 3-week-olds in it. And I grabbed a boy and I grabbed a girl. But I've got years into recognizing the signs and recognizing the differences. I want to see if they'll make different noises. They never cooperate for that part. But this is the male, this is the female. So we'll go ahead and grab him. And you can see that his comb is starting to get a little fatter, a little bigger. The color hasn't started to change yet. Really helps to recognize who's who when the color starts changing. But just that thickening of the comb lets us know. He's also got a little more substance to him. The boys are going to take off. See how her comb's still pretty itty bitty? I wonder if I can... I'll take their pictures and show you a side-by-side of that before we get on to the next group. Now we're at 4 weeks, and the difference is a bit more pronounced. We have our male here. You can see now there's color to the comb. It's come up in size quite a bit, but that early color is the main indicator. Here we have a pullet. Hasn't changed a whole lot. Still itty bitty, still pale. Did you hear the noise she just made? That's more of a feminine noise. There's a little bit of a size difference. That's just gonna keep getting bigger and bigger as they go. But this is why 4 weeks is a pretty good indicator. If everything you have looks like one or the other, it could have worked out that way. Comparing them to each other and pushing yourself earlier and earlier is where you start to see that experience coming into play. But your first time out, you're not going to be able to do it soon. You're going to have to wait until it's obvious, and then just keep going batch by batch until you feel pretty confident about it. That was a really chunky boy. I want to feel him again. Oh, nice. It's too soon to tell what his future holds, but that's a fat little bird. It doesn't look like much now, but that hand feel, that was good. We're going to move on to the next age group and show you how it just keeps getting more and more obvious. Now, sometimes you might read about how pullets will get their tail first in some genetic groupings. As you can see, these tails are pretty similar, and the boy actually has a little bit more tail growth going on. So once again, if it's not bred into the line, it is not reliable for telling the gender. And I will say that when I sort these guys out at like 4 or 5 weeks old, if I find a male in the pullet pen, I rule that guy out as a breeding contender because he didn't show the growth and he didn't express his gender attributes early enough. So that's not something I want to breed forward. And the sneaky ones, they're an automatic call for me. Just because I want to be able to keep doing this reliably. So going through my selections early and looking for the birds who show me this guy gets to stick around for more growth as a possible breeding contender because he's doing everything on schedule. If you want to have a schedule, you've got to develop your flock to the type of schedule you want to have. Now we're at 5 weeks, coming up on 6 weeks. And from here, it's pretty obvious to me. This guy in the center, that's a boy. That's a boy. That's a girl. Female in the corner, female, female, female. That's a boy. Those two are female. Those two are male. Females in the back. Male in the front. More girls. That's a boy. Look how chunky though. That's some good width coming in. Two males back there. The older they get, the more obvious it gets. At this point, the wattles start coming in. You can see him under his chin right there, starting to color up and drop down. There's size discrepancy in this group. They all hatched on the same day. But even though their sizes are a little bit different, the gender indicators are the same. Alright, moving on to the next age group. I promise, it just gets more and more obvious. We're at 7 weeks here. There's 2 pair in this pen. The female, a male, female, and male. Feather growth is the same. They're similar in size. The only indicator we have are their heads and the comb and wattle development. You can see the wattles are really starting to drop in here. That pretty well shows it. 2 boys in the back and a little female in the front. We've skipped ahead to 13 weeks old. The feathering is starting to get different. You can see the boys are starting to get their saddle feathers, their top 2 sickle feathers on the tail. Their comb and wattles are a lot more developed, and the girls are pretty much the same. Itty bitty, barely pink. But the boys, his comb is weird, but there's no mistaking his gender. Or hers. Or hers. There's the other boy. His comb is gonna be pretty funky too. I'm gonna leave them alone. They're having fun. Hopefully that helps you get it sorted out before they're this age. These guys are 9 months old. There's the boy. There's the girls. Once they start coming into active lay, the female comb comes up in size. It may or may not dip over depending on the traits of the particular line you're working with. And there's that difference in comb size. But now we're into the more developmental differences with the tails. Your females are not going to get a sickle feather on top of their tail. They're not going to get saddle feathers. They're not going to get the longer, pointier, thinner feathers in the hackle. That's the difference in male feathering versus the female feathering. So hopefully you've got birds that are about 4 or 5 weeks old that you can go ahead and dive into and take your best guess on what you have. More on this stuff later.